Tourism and travel have begun to be recognized by governments across continents for economic gain and prosperity. Tourism is the most sustainable force for world peace, a passport to progress. BITB, an industry platform aimed at senior professionals, serious networking, and knowledge sharing across verticals, recently concluded its conclave at Pullman Aerocity. In attendance were stalwarts from different verticals of the travel and hospitality industry, and discussions were held on topics such as the future of travel agents and tour operators. Presidents of the 4 leading travel associations, TAAI, TAFI, IATO and ADTOI, participated in the discussions.
If you can get together, I think even the differentiation from my limited understanding of the industry, whether you are a travel agent or a tour operator, you are still in the same league of being a travel facilitator. You are a travel intermediary. So your business interests are the same. Big takeaway which I want to suggest to IATO, TAAI, TAFI, all of them sitting here, that somewhere also please focus on if there is an opportunity or an avenue for working travel trade together. Your interests are common, whether it's inbound, outbound, whatever, domestic, somewhere you need to think about it. My second little takeaway, which I was mentioning to my good friend Dagini, that I will be talking on this in my opening remarks. We are all concerned with tourism in the larger picture. And I think somewhere, which I will try and echo through the day in various sessions in different forms, we need to understand that tourism is not just about asking for incentives. Tourism is not about just saying to the government that हमारा ये tax कम कर दो, हमारा ये कम कर दो, हमारा वो कम कर दो. I think we have lost the plot somewhere chasing the larger story for tourism.
This explosion of knowledge radically altered the equation. So from being, we had ABCs, which was a great thing, because you could figure out Raipur was connected to which cities. You could figure out, Kota Kinabalu was connected to which cities. You have to work in reverse now because that ABC is gone. But these were special, esoteric pieces of information which were only available with the travel agent, and therefore the travel agent was king. Today, unless you know the product, unless you've experienced it firsthand, unless you've seen that destination and explored it, you're actually in no position to sell it. And I'm talking the larger concept of tourism, not just ticketing. Even ticketing, most of the time people are buying their tickets online. So the disruption that has happened is something that all of us have had to come to terms with in some measure or the other.
We cannot ignore the traditional markets which we have. They need to be catered to, and apart from that, we have to look to wellness, Ayurveda, yoga, meditation needs to be approached with suitable winning packages. Destinations competing with India and the USA must be kept in mind. Then again, the most important is sustainable and responsible tourism, and this should be the watchword as to how we can do that.
Also faced lot of challenges. All the traditional travel agents and the tour operators had challenges from the OTAs because of their unethical practices. Not only that, as soon as the traffic opened and the lockdown opened, what we had done during the pandemic, lot of webinars with the hoteliers, with the state tourism boards, or with the transport systems, all the stakeholders, we had done almost 75 webinars. And even the Ministry of Tourism, they also followed, seeing that domestic tourism is the only way forward to look into that for the revival of the tourism in India.
So let's not be worried about the change. Let's be ready to have a change. Directly to the airline counter and buying a ticket. That's a different story. The customer feels a lot of problems, but that's a fact of life. We must accept it. So I said, okay, let's do nice package. And I decided to make packages to us, and I was very successful. I went to Chardham Yatra package tour. I must tell you, I had 11 movements in the 1 month's time. Something like I did about 70 lakhs of business in the 2 months' time itself. So domestic is a huge market, but you have to sell packages, what I did. In the sense, high-value packages. I refused to such low-value packages. And I succeeded in that. I succeeded because I did not go to consumer directly. I succeeded because I went to you people directly. I had a list of 2,000 travel agents.
To that mode, what we need to learn and achieve to work forward is product distribution. How do we create products? We need to innovate, we need to be creative, and we need to market these products.
In the MICE tourism, everybody says that Nepal, how many people can accommodate in hotel? Obviously in hotel, maximum 1,000. But Nepal recently started 2 conventional hall, one with the capacity of 3,000 people in Kathmandu, and another in Lumbini with the capacity of 5,000 people, which where the Modi ji was there to inaugurate that. So where we can get, before we have a wrong perception that the Indian tourists spend less than the European tourists or the American tourists. Then we did one survey and we found that Indian tourists, in average, they are staying 4.6 days and they are spending 17,800 Indian currency.
You are watching Travel World Online.
Every crisis, every challenge has an opportunity.
Excellent.
So look at the opportunities.
Thank you.
And change your,
Thank you very much. Jyoti, from your perspective, prior to COVID, any specific challenges that you saw which will get structural in nature going forward? And first issue is with the margins itself, virtually no margins. Within that, is that itself is a challenge for survival. So what do you suggest that? So I'll come to suggestion later. What were the challenges then? What are the challenges which we're getting? Let's say in terms of a structural risk. And my question more or less is focused on the margins, because margins are no longer there, and you are better aware than me. What does most of the businesses do when there are no margins? And this is pre-COVID I'm talking about. Now I can, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's okay now.
Thanks, Kapil, and thanks, Naveen, for actually organizing this. I think it's a wonderful opportunity after a long time to get onto a platform and discuss this, though we have been discussing the same over the 2 COVID years, like you've seen. I think, how do we actually define intermediary? I mean, what does it really mean? It means it's a mediator. So if our positioning is as a mediator, as a travel agent, and that's how you've put it, then we'll always be mediating between 2 people. I mean, that's how the business is going to go forward. I could be mediating for my corporate, my client, my customer, for the airlines, for the cruise companies. So my job is basically to mediate. So if in pre-COVID also era we saw that we actually don't give our own services the value. And I think that's where we are lacking as an industry. And I say that always, that if you are in this industry, which is an industry where there is a huge scope of growth and there's a huge scope of going forward, why don't we, and we've not done that over the years, we've not respected our own profession as such, let's put it that way. And I think that it's time for us to do that. It was time to do that even earlier. It's more the time to do it now, because I think we've realized in the 2 years that we really had to stand by ourselves. We have proved ourselves, we are very resilient, and we've stood by ourselves. But say, looking at the margins with competition will always go down. It's going down with all the platforms, all the OTAs and all businesses. I mean, you look at Big Basket, or you look at Amazon, and you look at any other shop. So I think the margins will keep going down, but unless we actually take a conscious call to say that, hey, we are one industry, we believe in services like the doctors do or the lawyers do. I mean, you are dying, you will pay anything. The lawyers, you are losing a battle in the court, you will pay anything. So how do you really get to pay and get paid for your services? And it's a very, a job that as a mediator you are carrying on your shoulders, where you're not even only giving the best experiences and service to your client, but you're also the in-between, like Subhashji said, you are paying refunds on behalf of the stakeholders where you are not even paid. So you are actually in the most crucial of being a mediator, And so I think you should demand your services. And that was something which we've been talking about since years and years. But somehow the industry just doesn't get together for that. And, they just don't try to understand that. And unless they do, this profession will never go forward. You need to understand your strengths. You need to understand your deliverables. You need to understand what you are really giving the value. And if you think you're not adding any value to your customer and not being able to charge for it, then I'm sorry, you're in the wrong business. So I think that is what I would think you should be doing.
Jyoti, specifically when you look at the principles, they are looking at distribution in a different way. It's changing and will change further. It's no longer up to the agent itself to see their role in the distribution will get challenged because principals are looking at their business models differently. Tell me from your perspective, apart from margin challenge and the fact that we are not able to charge service fee appropriate to cover our cost, do you see the travel agent in the form it's now bringing value to the client and to the principals? And does that need to change?
Yes, I think that certainly needs to change. It's time for us to be very, very professional in every aspect. And I say that very loudly. Because, I don't know, I think when I go back to the old times, and I've been in the industry long enough to quote that, leaving the travel agents initially, because you never needed any huge investment to get into this business. You never needed any MBAs or any, degrees to get into this business. I'm talking about now as a travel agent, not only in the hospitality, and I can understand hospitality is different. I'm talking about as travel agents. So anyone who wanted the most glamorous life, anyone who wanted to socialize, anyone who wanted freebies at that time, all jumped into this business. So somehow down the line, when this started happening, and I'm just going down the history to just explain why this happens, that we lost our actual thought process of saying, why are we in this business? Are we here to make money? Are we here to have fun? Or I'm very happy that Naveen calls me for a cocktail in the evening, and I'm very thrilled that I'm invited for dinners and cocktails and I get it for free. So like I've always been said, a travel agent never can die of hunger or thirst because he's always invited. So, so that's one thing we've always been looking at as a travel agent, and that's the value we have given ourselves. Okay, it's good. But I think going beyond now, and we are the youngest country where the major population is 35 and between those that span of age. There is a different culture that's going to come into the industry. The culture which the youngsters are looking to drive. Technology, of course. And I always say technology because technology is not a technology. It's not something that you should be very proud of that you are on technology platform. It's an enabler. And without that, you can't survive. It's like you can't survive without food and water today, or you can't survive with your drink today. So it's an enabler. But moving forward from that and being enabled to do your business properly and to deliver that experience, things are going to change dramatically because the youth doesn't have time. If they want a reward, they want it now, and now means now. They're not going to wait for you to say, hey, I call you back. Experiences, they're the first people to even put your good things on the social media and even the worst things on the social media. So you will automatically start delivering, saying, hey, I'm going to be out in the public. My reputation is out in the public. The youth doesn't, they are absolutely, they don't have any emotions with, with anyone today that they are going to be very loyal to anyone because they feel wherever they get best, they are going to move there. So I think looking at all those changes which are going to happen, and there are going to be quite a few of those changes that are going to happen when the youth comes in, I think we will have no choice but to adapt to them. And the ones who cannot adapt to the change quickly and get onto the new mode of travel to really treat tourism as an experiential platform, travel as a again, a support system, ticketing, what I mean to say, as tourism, and hospitality as the end need to say that, hey, when I travel, I need to be comfortable. I can afford it, and that's what I need. I do not want people bothering me. I don't want people harassing me. I don't want to go through any difficulties. So you have to be, again, the correct format of mediator and the intermediary.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jyoti. Thank you very much. We move to Shobha. Can you give us your point of view? Pardon me? Oh my God. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday. I'm sure Naveen can organize a cake. Naveen knows it. Okay, that's great. Okay, so let's go to Shobha. Your questions, your comments on the distribution prior, what challenges did it face and what kind of challenges?
So prior to, I'm actually in a kind of a unique business when compared to everybody. I am a mediator for a mediator.
Right.
So I'm a sales and marketing representation company, and I kind of mediate between hoteliers and the DMCs.
Right.
So, in fact, before the COVID, it was a pretty smooth ride because this was a collection of small and boutique hotels in offbeat areas. There were hotels who, there were tour operators who really wanted to, up their game and start looking at boutique properties. Then the hotels were very aligned towards inbound. In fact, 60 to 80% of the hoteliers that are on board RARE, they all wanted the Goras, right? So it was quite easy. So my job was just to connect the right hotelier, the right tour operator with the hotelier. So that was quite good. One of the challenges that happened to us was in 2003 when we started, we were probably the first movers. So we were just one company, or probably a couple of others were there, but in the sense that the way we did it, there were not many people. But the other thing that happened was we had competition. We had a lot of competition. And what we are talking about here, that travel agents, the undercutting and things like that, I saw this happening in my business. So, and it was such a small capsule that you could actually see it unfolding in front of your eyes. In the sense, when I started and I hope this will give you a little insight into what we've done to ourselves. So when I started out, we used to charge, like hypothetically, about 20,000 rupees from a hotel per month. And every year, because, work was increasing, the hoteliers were doing better and things like that. So it was slowly we were inching towards making it about 25 to 30%, 30,000 rupees a month. Then the competition came in. So people started saying, why are you asking us for more money? But that person is doing the same thing, but he's doing it for half. So then we kind of stopped at 20. We couldn't go beyond 20. And then more people came in. And more people started saying, oh, we do this also, we do that also, we do things RARE doesn't do. Then it went from 20, it went down, started going to 15. And by the time pandemic hit us, we actually had to look at our business and say we'd either increase the number of hotels or and keep reducing our rate per hotel, our monthly retainer per hotel, or completely reduce the number of hotels we have and say, take 2 or 3 hotels and say, this is our price. And we are not going to do anything. But this representation business did it to ourselves. We didn't have a benchmarking, we didn't have a best practice thing that said, listen guys, we are just 20 people. This is how we can increase and improve our business. We stick to like a kind of benchmarking and say we don't go below this. There's a lot of business in the industry. There are a lot of hoteliers who would be wanting this, and there are more and more people, more and more small business, for them it was a win-win. They did want to work with us. We were first movers, but it didn't matter after a point in time, right? So I think that is exactly what happened to the travel business as well. We really don't have, and this is across the board. The airlines should say, sorry, you cannot book directly with us. Hotels should say, sorry, you can't book directly with us. We work through channels, and this is the channels. They do it through OTAs, don't they? Right? So why couldn't they say that, why can't you have to work through tour operators? We don't. And I've seen in my small boutique hotels, there are some great examples, hotels who've stuck to this in the pandemic and said, you come through travel agents. If somebody is calling from Bangalore, and typically this is what they do in the domestic market, they'll say, they'll take rates from you, they'll look at you on Instagram, they'll call the hotel and they'll ask, what can you give? The hotels that stuck to their rate and said, sorry, whether you come directly or you come indirectly, this is the rate you get. Those were the hotels that were successful in the pandemic.
I wanted to ask you the 2 questions, 2 points that, one thing that stuck to me most, and that relates to value creation we talked about. One, you said that you were putting that foreign principles with the travel agents here or the right tour operators.
No. Putting the hoteliers in touch with the DMCs.
Foreign hotels.
No, with the DMCs here, the tour operators.
Right, but foreign hotels, right? Or
No, Indian hotels for Indian DMCs.
So when you were doing that, was it a value creation that you did? Because getting the right hotel to the right DMC, that itself is my assessment a part of the value creation that we were looking at.
Yeah.
I'm getting the right customer, he will give me the right yields.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a value.
How is it now? I mean, you started with it. How is it now as the commoditization
So
became?
let me answer your value creation thing first. It was value creation. It continues to be value creation, because these are not hotels, these are not your regular branded hotels. They are all in the off the beaten track areas. A lot of tour operators sitting here have actually put destination on the tourism map. So it was value creation not only for the hotel, for the destination, as well as for the tour operator, because otherwise he was selling Delhi, Agra, Jaipur, or Kerala, Cochin, Marari, as something, without somebody like us intervening and explaining the destination and how they can use the destination to benefit, and how he can offer it as a product to their operators, there would be no value creation. So it was an entire chain of value creation, both for the hoteliers, for the tour operators, and also for the foreign tour operators.
Tell me, in your experience starting from 2003, because that was a boom for hotels, I remember right from 4, 6, 7, 8, cities like Bangalore were getting...
But actually not for the boutique hotels. The boutique hotels actually came into their own somewhere in 2009, 2010. That was when the whole concept took on.
We heard here that a travel agent brings experience, has a relationship, he is available X number of time. In your experience, does it create a premium? Because you said that in your business particularly, that the retainer kept getting reduced and as many people come in. How do you monetize a relationship? How do you monetize what you do for a client? And is it monetizable anymore? Or very few can do it, rest of them can't do it?
Yeah, see, that's the tricky one. Number one, of course, is that there is the service part of it, which everybody spoke about, that you are there, but then you are the service industry, you're expected to be there. Right? So that is the service part of it. You're able to communicate well, and you're able to do all of this in a certain way. You're able to offer solutions to immediate problem. But you don't sell a business on the basis that if things go wrong, then I'm here for you. That's not how you do business. Right. You are there even before a problem strikes you, with opportunities and ideas and knowledge. So before the problem arises, you are the first and foremost, what you have on offer is the knowledge and the vast experience of the destination that you have to offer. Right. That includes, I mean, if there is a small boutique hotel opening somewhere in the boonies, as a tour operator, it is your job to know first, before your foreign tour operator says, and this is what technology is done. The foreign tour operator sitting, somewhere in the US is able to send you a mail and say, have you heard about this hotel? We saw this on LinkedIn. Before that happens, as a tour operator, if you want to create value, you are out there first, putting it out there in your...
So what you're saying is that whatever service we talked about and we heard during the course of this discussion, that service is integral to what you offer. Yeah. So it's not a new thing that you are available at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's not going to be monetizable for you, except you may get retention. You may have the client coming back to you, but you're not able to monetize it over above. Is that what your experience is? Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to Samir. Samir, give us your inputs on, from your perspective, what was prior to COVID, the distribution challenges, and what kind of challenges your businesses faced prior to COVID?
Oh, thanks. So I think from a typical hotel perspective, and if I sort of talk from the hotel industry perspective, we have been distributing through multiple channels, and travel specialists are one, online is another. We of course deal with corporates and deal with guests directly as well who want to book directly in hotels. Typically what we have seen, and which is where hotel companies have an edge over unbranded hotels, is the ability to use the data effectively, as Mr. Bakaya alluded to, in terms of technology. I think if I sort of talk on behalf of the 80% of hotels in the country which are unbranded, what they would have struggled with compared to the branded hotels who are better off in that, is the ability to price themselves appropriately to the various channels in terms of volumes, in terms of the need of that period, etc. So I guess technology has been definitely of importance to us in the hotel industry for a fairly long time now. Of course, we are all talking about it now more than before. But in terms of distribution, the biggest challenge for hotels in general is trying to reach the customer at the right time and be able to price it correctly.
Right.
So the challenge is bigger for unbranded hotels since they don't use technology as well. Of course, there are a lot of standalone hotels who have now started picking up products, etc. But I would say that was what we saw before the pandemic, because I guess that's what you're asking.
So from a distribution, let's say distribution mix perspective, you talked about pricing. Obviously, you would view profitability by channel. Why does the travel agent, the retail part of the travel agent, figure in the distribution mix that you have? And are they, is it profitable for you when the business that comes from a travel agent?
So, of course, and in fact, that's the reason you see hoteliers doing a lot of business with travel agents. And you know, in fact, our company, we have had a fairly strong relationship with the travel trade over the last couple of decades or more than that. And I would say that for many of the other players here as well. So, for sure, it makes sense. And why does it make sense? Because the travel trade, all of you have a reach to a large segment of the consumer who trust you. And I think that's why they book through you. So for us, it's absolutely important to be able to connect with you and understand, as Mr. Bakaya said, understand what your needs are and how we can help you crack that deal so that we also get benefited.
Right. It does, you know, earlier we used to get 10%, 15% commission on bookings. How is it changing and how will it change going forward? At least, how did it change prior to COVID? I'll come post-COVID now.
So I think prior to COVID, probably the biggest challenge which I have seen, if I sort of talk on your behalf, is the business which shifted from the travel specialists to the online platforms, because online platforms came funded and they were able to put in a lot more money to dilute the rates which they were actually picking up from hotels. So we, of course, and most hotel companies, especially the chains, are very clear in terms of following price parity principles. And hence, hotel chains would be offering similar rates, in fact, preferential rates to travel trade at times because, of course, there is all the productivity-linked incentives as well.
Yeah.
But having said that, for sure, if I talk on your behalf, you probably saw that as one of the biggest challenges, seeing the shift to the online travel trade. And I heard that in the previous session as well, where people said, somebody booked on one of the channels and couldn't cancel, etc. But for sure, that has been the challenge on, if I speak on your behalf.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Singh, same question to you.
Yeah. So I think, you know, the oldest debate in our industry is about online and offline. And I don't know and I don't understand why there is a debate. One is a platform. You people are the human interface. What you bring to the table, no one else can. Like Rohit said, you are the product. You get the customers, you tie up the hotel, you give all services from the time the customer enters the country, the guest enters the country till the time he leaves. I think it's about valuing the service that you provide. You know, the facilities, what you bring to the table very differently. And I'll give you a classic example. I know this is a very fragmented space, but so is hotels. And I'll give you a very classic example. Pre-COVID, if you ask my hotelier friends on this table and otherwise, you know, it was always a price battle. It was all about competing about price. But let me tell you what COVID has taught us, and these are facts and figures which you will see play out. In the last 2.5, 3 months, the average rate of hotels are 15 to 20% higher than April and May of 2019. What does it tell you? I think it's about valuing the price, the service that we provide, what we are worth. And hotels have, you know, even though it's a very fragmented space, I think it's a call that we've all taken individually. And in our business, in the hotel business, it's always occupancy first and rates to follow. But let me tell you today, Indian occupancy, the average India occupancy is still not caught on to the pre-COVID levels, but the rates are 15 to 20% higher. So it's not about chasing volumes, but it's about chasing value. And I think that's the big change that you know, is brought on in our space in the pre and the post pandemic era.
A follow-on question, in terms of the mix of distribution, online, direct, and through travel agents on the B2, let's say B2C, B2B, and the direct part of it. How has it changed pre-COVID? What was the trends that you were seeing from Lemon Tree's perspective?
So I'll tell you, see, the situation, Kapil, right now is very fluid. You know, corporate travel still hasn't started.
No, I'm talking about pre-COVID. I'll come to COVID.
So I'll tell you, pre-COVID, for a, you know, it depends on portfolio, but Lemon Tree has a very large portfolio in business cities, and therefore for us, corporate was a very large segment. Online and offline both work. We don't have too many leisure locations, or we didn't pre-COVID, so therefore the contribution to the leisure portfolio, which is what a lot of the offline travel agents bring to the table, was relatively a smaller number. But today, let me tell you that in the post-pandemic world, the distribution has changed in multiple ways. A lot of new segments have come up. For example, if I tell you that, you know, the OTT platforms today contribute a very large percentage of our business in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, because they shoot these serials and they take over the entire hotel for a month or two, and they give you good business. A lot of customers have moved to retail. In fact, you know, they are the ones who, instead of, you know, so there's been a big shift from the unbranded to the branded. And we are already seeing that with the big surge in the retail segment. When I say retail, it could be an FIT walking into the hotel, using an online platform, using an offline agent. So that's been a big shift. These are guys who typically would not use branded hotels earlier to COVID, but that's a new trend and a very important trend that's come up.
In fact, that's my next question, but you can continue with that. Yeah, you can continue with that. I was just
talking of segments pre and post, staycations. Now, staycations is something which we saw come out in very large numbers and volumes in the COVID era, because every time you were locked up in your houses for weeks and months together, and therefore, even before you venture to another city, you decided to take a vacation in the city that you live in. So that's a new segment which came up, which never existed pre-COVID. So, like I said, the world has changed. Hoteliers have probably realized the value of the product and the service they offer. I think we've got down to pricing ourselves right, and that's the new world for us today.
I'm tempted to ask you this. I ask these to airline guys, and we see some airline guys here. We may catch up with them as well. There is this, 15-20% increase in the fares that you said, and you see airlines also possibly getting about 400-500 rupees more than same period last year. Is it sustainable according to you? And what makes you think that it's sustainable?
I think two reasons. A, it's sustainable. B, my view is that come season, come October, it'll grow even further. What you see right now is a lot of people say this is pent-up demand and therefore it'll even out. But I have 2-3 points to this. Firstly, there's been a paradigm shift from the unbranded to the branded, and I'm sure my colleagues here will agree that there has been a big shift. People are now, things like safety, security, hygiene, which were table stakes and no one really looked at it too much, in my opinion, have become very important. And I think they would prefer to go to a brand or a chain for that. That's one reason. Secondly, I think what in the last 2 years, the kind of destruction that the industry has gone through, no one's going to put up hotels. And unlike an airline where you can just go buy an aircraft, lease one and, add supply, in our business, to build a hotel is a 3, 4, 5-year phenomena. And I don't see supply growing beyond 4-5% for the next 4 to 5 years. So keeping these factors in mind, I think this rate hike is sustainable, and I don't see a reason why it won't go up further.
Okay, thank you very much. A quick question to second round, and since we need to close, and we may start with Rohit first. 2 years of lockdown, did you see some deterrence in the supply side, demand side for certain products? And how structural are some deterrents? And some markets may have emerged, some may have lost. What's your view from the businesses that you represent, Rohit?
So again, I'm gonna speak from an inbound perspective a little bit here. There's definitely been a shift, for sure. Shift in that a lot of companies overseas have gone bankrupt. The way people work now is different. So what is happening now is that a lot of people have realized that working shorter hours is actually better for their business. They don't want to spend that much money on salaries. Most companies have downsized. I have a feeling most...
One more question, I'm tempted because you do a lot of interaction globally as well. Do you find that whether it's business travel or it is inbound, within inbound there are different segments, is there a new normal that we will look from a demand perspective going forward? Because people talk about pre-COVID, whether that's relevant anymore, I'm not so sure.
No, see, demand is always going to be a factor in everything we do. There has to be demand for a destination for us to even have a conversation. But let me give you an interesting statistic. One of the largest tour operators in the world, massive company, I'm sure, many of them know them, called the Travel Corporation. Huge company, right? They have 10 brands that sell trips across the world. They have scrapped all their Asia programs till 23 because they cannot keep up with the demand for Europe.
Mm-hmm.
They have 17,000 people a day going to Europe.
Excellent.
A day.
Thank you. We need to move on. Mr. Bakaya, anything that you saw, any new deterrents in the value chain, both demand and supply, any markets that got lost, any markets that have emerged?
Kapil, I'm eternally optimistic, so I only look at the positives. What emerged big time in the last 2 years is the domestic traveler. And some of it is upgrading from unbranded to branded. Some of it is just their feeling of being bottled in and not going anywhere. So the average Punjabi who'd travel out to Malaysia, Bangkok, Singapore, Europe, etc., wasn't able to go anywhere else. So he got on a plane and went to your Masuris and Simlas, etc. And Kashmir. So domestic travel has boomed. We're charging rates that really are ridiculous at the moment because there's just not enough supply. And I'm not sure. I think the big challenge is to hang on to this domestic customer and make sure he comes back often enough in the next few years to keep that part of it going. Places like Goa, etc., have actually benefited rather than lost out in COVID. So I think that's a big, huge change. There is also the perception change of going into safer places, more hygienic places, more secure places, and that's where hotels benefit or structured hotels benefit more.
Thank you. Mr. Goel, anything that you would tell us that what happened in the last 2 years, both in terms of deterrence in the value chain, demand, supply, any new markets that you saw coming back?
No, I think the learning from the last 2 years is don't keep all your eggs in one basket and diversify, because you never know what may happen tomorrow.
Yes.
They say trust no future, however glorious.
Right.
In the age of atomic weapons or COVID-19, it may or may not come.
Right.
So just be prepared, keep trying your best and be prepared for the worst, and save something for the rainy days.
Excellent. Jyoti?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think you're audible.
Yeah, okay. So like Ajay said, domestic market was one market that boomed, and I think India was lucky in that, because we do have everything and suddenly people realize that India has a lot of things to offer. Offbeat places, leaving the city hotels, which I'm sure went through a very bad time. Other states and cities and staycations became a big thing. Two countries which really emerged because of us, India, is Maldives and Dubai, because I think they were the one who encashed it without the strict protocols and stringent way of travels. So I think today India is the #1 source market for both the countries. So that says a lot for people who want to encash opportunities. I think Schengen countries and UK and US and Canada and all these countries which are still opening up and visas are a challenge, I think they've all lost out on the opportunity which they could have actually availed and encashed on, because India was ready to travel with a bang. And I think we've suffered, and they have suffered because of this. But now I think it's time for us to see how we can woo the inbound back. And like, it's already been discussed, I think we need to look into that, how we can create quickly with inbound, getting e-visas on time, extension of e-visas, One thing that's emerged very strongly, and like someone remarked on this panel, was that a lot of people have downsized their companies, people have gone out of businesses. So 3 things that have emerged very strongly is collaboration and cooperation and working together. I think people are reaching out to others to say, hey, can we connect, can we work together? I think that's a good thing which has come out of COVID, because people have started not using their own strength, but the strength of their neighbors.
Thank you very much. Shobha?
Yeah, most definitely the domestic traveler really saved the day for a lot of our hotels. But one of the challenges is that we really are not, we kind of continue to complain about the domestic traveler without putting a strategy in place, without having to, see, we are a very young traveling population, right? So we don't try and create opportunities for learning or, things like that, but there's always this complaint. But having said that, domestic has been very great. I agree with Jyoti that collaborations have been very, very good. The third most important thing is something that we've been crying from rooftops, is that travel has to have a larger meaning. Just not, business is not enough. I mean, travel to getting there to, to bomb the destination and leave your garbage behind and things like that. So awareness about what travel is doing to, especially mass tourism is doing to destinations, vis-a-vis what travel can actually create, the positive impact that we can create, this is becoming very, very strong. And you see the glass bottles here, it's a great testimony to the fact that awareness is creeping in, and a lot more people are actually, whether they mean it or not, they're forced to put it into their brand narrative to say that responsible tourism is actually a thing going forward.
Excellent. Mr. Singh?
I think I have spoken, but I think one thing that I would like to add is, I think that the average Indian is now used to taking 4 or 5 holidays a year. That trend will continue, that trend will grow, and I think the big resurgence of domestic demand is here to stay. It was not a COVID phenomena, and I think more locations, more accommodation options, that's going to be the future. So that's my 2 bit.
When you say 4 to 5, that's a big number, particularly in the domestic. Do you see that, is it based on research or it's specific to your hotels? Is it industry impact, or it's just to your hotels?
So Kapil, it's my assessment of the behavior of the average Indian traveler. I think, road journeys have come into prominence, which had completely...
I mean weekends and when you have these...
Yeah, I mean to say whether it's, smaller getaways to nearby places, because earlier in India, holiday meant 5 or 10 locations. Today, it means 50 locations. It means offbeat places. I mean, we were at a Northeast summit, Jyoti and I were there, and so was Samir, and we were talking about the potential of the Northeast and what options do they have, and how people are now flocking there, how brands are putting up hotels there.
Right.
So the world is changing, the country is changing, and I think there will be more holidays and there will be more locations, stroke destination that people are willing to explore now.
Okay, thank you very much. Samir?
If just to answer your first part, what has changed or what has gone down, probably for us in the short term, the corporate traveler is still not recovered to the way it was, primarily inbound business travel. And secondly,
when you say corporate, it's the big corporates or SME, MSCs you include in corporates?
I'm talking about all of them.
All of them.
When I say specifically corporates, the large corporations have also learned that you don't need to travel to conduct business. So technology has come in place there. So we also as hoteliers are learning how to target other businesses. Vikramjit alluded to the fact that there are opportunities like OTT shootings, etc. And that's something which will continue to evolve. That's one part. The second is, of course, the rise of the domestic traveler. So for many of us who were dependent on a 80-20 on domestic versus inbound, primarily in the last 2 years, we've survived 95 or 100% because of that. In fact, I was speaking at a panel in Kerala Travel Mart a month ago, and the moderator started by saying that many of us in the travel trade, including myself, refused to deal with domestic travel till the pandemic hit, and now I have survived because of domestic travel. So I guess that's testament to somebody who's and a very senior person in the travel trade. So for sure, that is something which is bound to stay. And for hotel companies, it's access to a huge target market, which we are all going to, of course.
Excellent. We can have one question, Mr. Berry, if you allow. One? One question, okay. One question, yes.
We have gamut of hoteliers here and the trade associations here. But industry is facing a huge challenge right now so far as the perspective of the inbound tour operators is concerned. The key element here is sustainability of the relationship with the international marketplace is very paramount for us when we have the revival of the inbound tourism coming forward. When Rohit said as a product and as an inbound tour operator, myself, you see, having successfully running a business for 42 plus years, I see a huge challenge coming my way because despite the fact that I have been the best paymasters to all the hoteliers, yet for 26 long months, we have been chasing through the trade associations and the hotels directly, asking for the COVID refund to be paid back to the foreign tour operators. And this is, we started with more than 1 CR outstanding, which is now down to about 25 lakhs. We have recovered 75 lakhs, but 25 is still pending. And different hoteliers, you see, have been on the ball game. But the reply what we get from the hoteliers, they have no money. Yet they say that they are full with the domestic clients. So I don't see, the reason why the money cannot be paid back to the foreign market. Absolutely. That's my question. How do you answer that?
I don't know who will answer.
I think it's a relevant question, a very good question. I can speak for myself. I can speak for my colleagues here at least. I don't know of all the companies. We offered 100% refund for cancellations due to COVID, without question. No refunds were held back. Yes, there may have been a situation in some hotels where they actually didn't have the cash flows, so things could have been delayed. But by and large, I would say 99 or 100, money has been paid. So if there's anything pertaining to us guys here, please let us know.
Ma'am, last question, quick, to you. You raised your hand.
From the hotels. Okay, now, unless it's a cut and pay, which doesn't happen now, because no passenger or corporate, anybody wants to give you money, and they're very suspicious the minute you say, you pay me and I'll pay the hotel. Everyone wants to pay with their credit card. Once a credit card, and many people now, like you said, take so many vacations, so they decide last minute. So they say, we pay by credit card, why should we pay you in advance? And then the commission process is so long. You have to keep writing. They'll say, oh, you have to go to the credit section, this, that. It is such a tiring process. So I personally now do all my bookings on Expedia. Because no problem, you get your commission at the end of the month. You don't have to send mails after mails. So this is a issue that all hoteliers must have a system, where they pay the travel agents their commission, you take 1 month, 2 months, but pay the commission.
Ma'am, thank you very much. Well, firstly, I don't think it should be 1 or 2 months first to begin with. Secondly, I think this is where the associations come in. If you have hotels or hotel companies that are particularly difficult, please point them out and share them amongst each other.
This is primarily the last question. I'm sure Jyoti, Mr. Goyal and Ajay are here to answer your questions. I think the larger question which Anuj raised was about value creation. That's still perhaps not answered, maybe during any other conference, because it's post-COVID about relevance and it's about value creation, and that's a fundamental reassessment that the travel industry needs to do, particularly from a distribution perspective. Thank you very much. Please give them a warm round of applause.
Can I make a very cheap plug here? Sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
Please
Shobha spoke about responsible tourism, and I think we all, as an industry, must embrace responsibility. And one of the things Shobha and I do together is we're part of the Responsible Tourism Society of India. It is my request for all of you, why don't you all join? It's a very small membership fee. It's not an association. It's not one of those bodies. It's a great effort. All of us need to get together and do something, guys.
Thank you, Rohit. That's a lovely commercial, which we'll all follow strictly. Thank you very much, my panelists here for the last session. I'm inviting Mr. Sanjay Kumar, Chief Strategy and Revenue Officer for Indigo Airlines. Sanjay, please join us while this group photograph is being taken. Allow me this 2 minutes to say that in your last session, this talk about domestic, my understanding, honestly, is that a major correction has happened, which none of you actually expressed, or on the domestic. No, the actual correction. India, with its size, was never meant to cater for foreign tourists. It was meant for domestic. I also mentioned earlier in the day that we must stop comparing ourselves with Dubai and Singapore. Our actual comparison should be with the US. Or even Europe. Europe as Europe, combined Europe, otherwise US. And if you see that the base is domestic,